everybody's making lazy arguments because nobody wants to look into it, and then we're just supposed to be like, their argument is dangerous. It's like, well, your argument's dangerous as well because you don't know fucking shit about it. It's like fake news is only dangerous when you don't look into it and you just share it blindly.
The media sensationalizes anyway. That's their job, to get views, to get subscriptions, to get clicks, to get advertisers. So yeah, you've got to appeal to people's emotions. What was it? 93% of Black Lives Matter protests were peaceful. But of course, you got to focus on that 7% and spin this narrative for people who don't exist in that world. And they spread that knowledge to other people. And that's where the danger is.
You can't laugh at that.
It's a very relevant topic, and it shouldn't be, but it is. But also, it's been around since the beginning of journalism, from tabloids to, I mean, everybody. There's no such thing as a objective news source, and then that's how things like conspiracy theories and QAnon and all this stuff ends up on the front page of a mainstream media source like Fox News, or you know, I mean, CNN's guilty of it. They're manipulating us, and we're going to talk about it today because this is You Can't Laugh at That, the podcast where we take topics that you can't laugh at, and we find ways to laugh at them in the never-ending quest to prove that anything can be funny. With me, David, today is Jeremy Demery, our producer, engineer extraordinaire, live from his bunker. Jeremy, what's going on there?
I hope no one finds me.
That's the goal.
At goldenxstudio.com.
That's what
It's all about
goldenxstudio.com. Follow us on social media. And I love how, like, comedians are the easiest to stalk. Like, you can never lose an obsessive ex, because it's like, don't show up at the Funny Stop tonight and tomorrow night at 7:30 and 9:30. Like, that's...
Especially if your name's Stacy Abigail.
Yeah.
I made that name up. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
That was pretty impressive.
We almost went with two first names. Speaking of two first names, our guest today is Ray Roberts, now currently living in Wisconsin and performing regularly in Appleton. Yeah. I don't know. What's the scene like up there, man? How's it going?
It's different. I know that I'm a lot to deal with, and like, so I've been trying not to be that. Mm-hmm. Like for like the longest time, like I stuck to like when in the Northeast Ohio days that were so long ago, a whole 3 months ago.
It's been ages.
Yeah, it feels like forever. But like, for the longest, like, I just didn't go to Cleveland because I know I have my persona of like, I'm great at everything. And it takes a lot. Like, for the like, people who I've been friends with now for years are like, you're an asshole when you first meet somebody. And then it like takes a minute to like, oh, that's just like, that's the persona that you have to do to like challenge everybody to do it. So I was like, I'm not going to do that when I moved to Milwaukee. And then, of course, the first set I do, like, I sign up first on this open mic list because nobody signed up before 6th. So you're going first on an open mic in a pandemic, and you're brand new in town. Nobody's paying attention. So, of course, I call out everybody in the room, and I'm like, look, motherfuckers, like, we're all stars here. Congratulations for signing up no sooner than 6, but I'm going first to break the ice for you. Here's some shit. And then now nobody likes me, and I wonder why. And it's I've been trying not to do that, but every once in a while you have to be the guy.
You? No.
Yeah,
Listen, motherfuckers, I run this town.
Yeah, I just got here. You don't know me, but I'm going to talk to you like I've known you for 30 years. But that's also, I'm not ashamed of it because that's how you're not going to get something unless you ask for it, and you're not going to get respect unless you demand it. So like, I'm not going to be punked by some open micers in Milwaukee. I've been paid to do this.
Yeah, you just walk into the room and just hit the biggest guy.
Right. I listened to John Bruton on your podcast last week, so I'm all hype. I'm like, you better respect me, motherfucker. Like,
that's right.
That's I love John Bruton. Just to shout back to his episode, just because he's like whatever. Like, I don't care if you like me. I don't care if you don't like me. I'm Michael Jordan. I'm Kobe Bryant. I have to be confident going into this shit. And I feel like people are too, I don't want to use alpha versus beta, but I feel like people are too beta on like, we're all doing this because we think we deserve all the attention. Let's not pretend that we don't think we deserve all the attention. Let's just do it.
There's a big difference, though, between confidence and hubris. So I think there's a lot of comedians out there that think that what they're trying to do is confidence, but in reality, they're being pompous assholes and dicks. So there's a big difference.
Oh, for sure.
You're very certainly a very confident comedian, but you're not an asshole either.
Like one of my best friends, we were talking, Dylan Lusk, one of my best friends, I talk to him literally all day, every day. He's like, you don't understand how arrogant you come off. And it's like, I'm not arrogant. I know that I have to talk in a certain way. Like if I was like, I'm not shit at this, which none of us are shit at this, otherwise we'd be on television. But like, if I didn't believe that I was good enough to be right up with those people, or I didn't believe that what I was saying behind a microphone is the most important thing to say at that moment, why am I there? And it makes me stay to a certain level. If I talk all this shit and I don't hit that, like that's embarrassing. And if I don't talk shit and I'm like, all right, whatever, it's not a big deal. But if I'm like, I'm the best in the room, I'm gonna be the best in the room, and I'm whoever's room it is, like Bill Squire, and like when I would go do the Comedy Cabin, I'm gunning to be better than he is because that's his room, that's his crowd. I'm going for him, and I love the guy. But like in that, like it's a boxing match. You're like, I'm gonna be the funniest one in the room. So when they leave, they go, yeah, Bill was great because he's always great, but who's this guy? And like that's what I want to do. Is like every show is like when I'm hosting, I'm going out swinging. I know you're supposed to sell chicken fingers and sell drinks and be like, set the table. But it's like, I want people to be like, hey, they should have given you more time. And it's like, go tell this guy. Like, that's what I feel like a lot of people don't do. And I feel like they need to.
You can't laugh at that.
When you turn on the TV, this is the segue here. This is the moment. This is our, is the idea that the media is manipulating us. And it's good to be skeptical to a certain extent. It's good to have some degree of cynicism. Like if you're just being fed stuff all the time and you're saying, yeah, that's the truth, think for yourself. And that's why I wanted to talk, because I listened to your album. It's on Spotify. Is it on iTunes?
It's on everything, but you can go straight to my website where it's free. That's what I wanted it to be originally, but I was too dumb to figure out how to do it. And so I just like paid money, and now it's on Spotify. So go do it there so I get a couple dollars, I guess. Yeah. I don't care. It's out there. Yeah,
it's called B-Sides, all that. I want to get into your bit, and then we can start get into the real, the nitty-gritty of fake news, because it's something that is it's a term that's bandied about with far too much frequency nowadays. So do you want to introduce the clip?
So the whole idea behind my album was, quote unquote, like loose quotes album, was I was bored and I have like all these recordings in my pocket from like all these different spots that I do. And like I was just like re-listening to all these shows, and I was like, there's a bunch of shit that I'll never be able to work into my actual act. So why wouldn't I put it out there as something that's out there? So like people are either going to like it or they're going to hate it, but it's all going to be chunks of stuff that's like individually shared. Like you can share it and it doesn't like take away from anything. Like you don't have to follow along. So this clip is at this old bar called Cheese and Chong's in Highland Square in Akron. And it was like a whole night of like people who were like, and it's like a very liberal leaning room, and like they're very nice, and you can kind of like open the air on it a little bit. And I've been working on this, like I had been working on this moon being fake bit for like the longest time, and it finally worked, and it like sandwiched its way in, and I was like, it's never going to get better than this. So that's kind of why I released it. And it was like a big week of like fake news is like the problem. Like Zuckerberg needs to do something about it. I think it was like when he was in court about it. So it was just kind of like the whole, like it was kind of like poking fun at like the whole idea that fake news is bad. Yes, we all know it, but like think about it like an adult, you know. It's kind of the point. So I don't know, the joke kind of walks you through it itself, apparently. I don't know.
Let's give it a listen.
I need to stop saying things out loud that I know aren't true but I heard somewhere, because like that's the best. Everybody wants to talk about how fake news is a bad thing. No, it's a good thing if you're an adult with a brain, because like you get to Google things and be like, this is how some people think, and that's more fun. So like I just like to drop things that aren't true. Like the moon's not real. I say it a lot. It's probably real. We'll go that far, but like if you go outside and you look up, it's gonna be there. But what is it really? I remember being in high school and like your buddy had a girlfriend that went to another school. That's what the moon is. You've got like old flip phone pictures that you don't really know what's going on up there, but they're just like, we were there. I promise. I promise real hard. And you're just like, great, I'm gonna just believe that thing controls the tides. Get the fuck out of here. Gravity, my ass. This is a Fox News segment right now. I'm gonna put a new segment in my life called Things I Say Hi in Highland Square or Fox News. And then I'll wake up and listen to this and be like, what the fuck were you on? I don't know, I vote Democratic, but I think it's way more fun.
Your vote, you get like a text, cut it here.
Just because, I don't know. That's my favorite is like and throughout the whole album is like, and that's my favorite part is like it didn't cost anybody anything unless they wanted to buy it, and like somebody still complained that it was only 15 minutes long, that you could hear my phone buzzing, and I was like, that's the whole point. Like that was the whole point of the whole thing, was to like be punk rock, self-produced, and like I put it together in an afternoon sitting on my couch. So like I never really. Yes, I was excited to like put my own album out there and like put my name on something and have it available, but like nobody said it was great. The whole thing is called B-sides, all that. Like it's not like top tier shit, and somebody was still mad about it. And you're like, come on, guys, let's put our scope on this. Why am I going to go with my top tier stuff? And if somebody shows up to a show, they're like, I already know this, and it's like, yeah, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to burn my actual good material?
Right. Have you done that bit since?
I did it once at a mic in Milwaukee. And I mean, I've done it since that, but I haven't done it like since I released it really. Like I had been working on that premise of like the moon not being real for, I mean, a long time. Like just because like it's one of my favorite conspiracy theories. Like I love conspiracy theories, but more as a hobby. Like, I'm not going to, like, I don't look at QAnon because I know that that's, like, fake. Like, I'm not going to, like, go, like, say vaccines are, like, killing people. I mean, are they going to kill some people? Yeah, but that's what happens when you give medicine to millions of people. It just happens. Like, whatever. But, like, my favorite one, because it literally has no stakes, is whether or not the moon landing is fake. And I think it's just a real fun thing to get in arguments with people about, because it doesn't affect their life. People have strong feelings about something that happened, 60 years ago now? Like, it is so funny, and people just get so hype about it. And I know enough about it where I can, like, undercut the argument right off the bat. So taking that fun for me and then, like, making it a stage bit was always just kind of, like, a project that I wanted to do. And it just finally worked that night for whatever reason.
I mean, it's a good crowd. It's a hot crowd. Obviously, you have to know the audience. That's a big part of comedy. You're not gonna go into a room full of uneducated people and start talking about the moon. They're gonna because they're gonna believe, whatever you say. And that's the problem with the whole fake news thing, is if you say something with enough conviction and enough repetition, eventually people are going to be like, you know what? He's right. Because the cognitive dissonance is hard to deal with. So instead of having these conflicting thoughts, like this guy that I like keeps saying this thing over and over, but I know that what he's saying isn't real, eventually you're going to be like, well, if you look at it from a certain angle, it makes sense. What he's saying makes sense. Like, you're going to justify it. And
but who is that on? And this is kind of like the whole point of like the rest of that joke is like me saying like I vote Democratic, but it's more fun to say that I don't, just because like it makes people mad, and it doesn't matter what I say. It's like what I do. Like I've worked for the Democratic Party. I've given more money to Hillary Clinton than anybody who's listening here. Like I have done the legwork, so I feel like I have a right to be like, the Democrats are all lizard people, because it's a funny thing to say and it gets people mad, and you're doing like it's on purpose because I can do the argument against it because I know it so well. And it's on like, and I think you just have lost the nuance of, and there's a line, of course there's a line, everybody will be like, oh great, another straight white guy talking to me about nuance. Like I get that, but we're all adults and we know where the line is. It's just some people have been like, well, this orange fuck on TV keeps saying this, so I can say it. It's like, no, like he's an actor. You voted for him because he's popular. He's an actor. That's why you loved him so much. He said the shit that you wanted to say. Should you have made him president? Fuck no. Like he shouldn't be president, but he should but most of the people who are famous shouldn't be famous. You're an adult. You have a real life. Like you should know the difference. And that's on you. Like if he's like, build that wall, and he says it 1,000 times, like a wall's not going to do shit. Like everybody knows that. Like he keeps saying they're going to pay for the wall. Like we're going to pay for the wall. And at a certain point, it's on me, it's on you, it's on everybody who hates him to stop being like, all these people are stupid. It's like, they're not all stupid. They just got caught up into it. And like, it's everywhere now. Like nobody knows how to quell this thing. And it's the same thing as like this week, like the Hunter Biden stuff comes out. Like the kid's like a multi-million-dollar crackhead, and like the story gets buried. And you're just like, no, this is the most interesting story in the entire world. You can't bury that. And like we've been calling Trump a Russian puppet for 4 years, but like Joe Biden's son is paid by the Russians to get natural gas stuff done. And we're just like, yeah, but that's not real. And it's like, well, you can't have it both ways and be like, that's fake news and fake news is dangerous. But also when it's something I don't like, I'm going to call it fake news and it's no longer dangerous. Like, it's you have to be in that nuance of like, all right, fine, we were wrong on this one, but also who gives a fuck? Like his one kid making millions of dollars from Russia is different than all of Trump's kids making millions of dollars from us. Like it's a completely different thing.
Yeah, it's the ability to step outside of this binary construct and look at it and be like, the whole thing's weird. What? Like, every single component of it you can pick apart and be like, this shouldn't be happening, but it is. Why? Like, and you can disseminate that. And that's what I think. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but from my perspective, that's the way I looked at this joke. Is like you're punching down on Democrats to almost antagonize people who lean more to the right, like to kind of poke fun at that construct, that perspective. So
yeah, and it's kind of one of those like, and I'm glad that you said punching down, because it was like a note that I made for myself. Like, yes, I'm a straight white male in America. I was born on third base, and I'm ready to go home. But like also like I grew up like one of the poorest families in a rich town. So like, yes, we were doing better than other things. All of my heroes are rappers from like New York who like so you get like this different view, and you're like, all right, cool. And that's what all of us do. Like we're all comedians because we can see things differently than other people. Mm-hmm. So it's lazy for everybody to be like, you're punching down, or you don't care about this, or you don't care about that. Of course you're going to feel that way because you're straight white. It's like, yes, I get that I am, but like it's different because we see things differently than other people. And instead of like hiding from it and saying like, do you know what, you're right, just for the cause, like, yes, for the cause, we're all on the cause. Like we love it. We get it. Donald Trump's the bad guy. Like we're all on the same page that Donald Trump's the bad guy, but he's fucking funny when you like look at it from the outside and you're like to say that one of the people who has been in power for like the last 40 years and Joe Biden is going to do anything better than Donald Trump. And to say that out loud, you're like, oh, so you're going to vote for Trump. It's like, no, but also know that like Joe Biden's probably the devil too. Like you're not going to like, it's not going to get better. It's just going to be different. And we're all going to be calm about it. Like it's real weird. And it's a very lazy thing to say, like, oh, you punch down, like you're not supposed to punch down. It's like sometimes you need to punch down and get into the thick of it for the people up top to see that they're like, it's punching down makes people who think that they're better than those people realize like the preconceptions they have of the people who are down. Like just the phrase punching down means that you think I'm better than those people. That means you're better than those people. So who says what's down? And it's kind of like a weird thing to be like, you can't punch down. It's like, let's swing at everybody and see who it hits. Yeah. And like, if me punching down makes something better from the people up top, then that's the point. Like that's actual action instead of like a Facebook post and like just going on with your day and like sharing the fucking black square and all that stuff. Like you're like, use your brain, use your voice, but also like use it in a real actionable way that's different, not just because they're saying to do it.
Well, I punch down solely to let everybody in the room know nobody's safe.
Everybody's gonna get it. But like, and it goes back to the like, why are you doing it? Or if you're doing it on purpose, like like I used to have a joke that was talking about like diva cups, and it was just like a dumb quick joke, and some girl came up to me afterwards and she's like, I don't like that you make fun of that because diva cups save women in third world countries millions of dollars a year on sanitary products. And I go, I knew that because I did the research on this joke. Like I researched the joke and I said it on purpose and I know what I'm doing. Like I know what I'm doing. Maybe like all these people don't, and like they just think that like I would call it a gross K cup. Like I don't like, and like people like it's a funny turn of phrase, and like people might be laughing at that, but then they might go, I don't know what a fucking diva cup is, so they might like Google it and research it and see it. And it's not on me. It's my job to be funny, but also like I want people to think a little differently afterwards. Where if I just go in and I'm like, Trump is orange, and everybody's like, ha 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 ha, like the world is the fucking Handmaid's Tale. Yeah, you get them, sis. Like come on, like what are we doing here? Like at least poke fun at everybody. So like how you said, like everybody's gonna get it, but it's not like I'm so edgy everybody's gonna get it. It's like everybody's gonna get a little bit, so you know that when I hit somebody else, like I put as much thought into knowing how far to hit on that thing as I did for on your thing. So like I know where the button is for you. I know it's gonna trigger you, but that's what laughter is anyways. Laughter is a trigger. You're supposed to trigger involuntary laughter. Are you gonna make some people mad? Sure, but then they're gonna get theirs, and then it's like it's on purpose. So like we were saying before, I don't even know if it was when we were recording or not, because you guys are very sneaky with the record button. Is like if you're doing, like, know why you're doing it. If you're being a shithead to be a shithead, or if you're being mean to get to a funny part, like know that you're gonna get some shit on it. Like, and that's where a lot of people are like, they're telling me I can't say this. No, they're not. They're saying you're not funny about it yet. Like you're just being mean. It's just not funny yet. And some people don't have the patience to do it and take their lumps when they get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's fair.
Well, you talked about a tool that I think is a lot of fun to play with. You're talking about how you joke about like voting Democrat. You joke about like that, the more liberal perspective, but you're somebody that is like knee deep in it, you know, and to make fun of your own position, to punch down at people who agree with you. That is an incredibly strong tool. It's a powerful tool to use, especially when you're making a point to people who are ideologically opposed to you. You can connect with them because you're like, fuck liberals, you know, like they're, you know, these victim, you know, self-victimizing and you know, everybody's racist and xenophobic and homophobic. And it's like, no, we're human beings. Like, and then you make an opposite point about somebody who's actually doing those things that it is their guy, they're more likely to laugh because you've made a connection with them. And you have a stronger argument.
Like, well, right. And if you look at your group and you don't go, what a bunch of fucking morons. Like, like we're like the three of us, like three straight white dudes in our 30s who are allowed to vote. But are you not in your 30s yet?
No, I'm not white.
Okay.
I'm just pale.
He's right.
Yeah,
He's not.
I'm zero white.
Yeah.
Well, anyways,
Okay,
go on.
sorry. Sorry, I assumed sorry, you identify as different than white, but your appearance is.
I'm discreetly ethnic, sir. Discreetly ethnic.
But like that's the whole point of it is like you can't not look at that situation and be like, you can see where somebody who didn't. There's no excuse for being an asshole in the real world and like being like, I don't think Jeremy's rights are like different than mine. He shouldn't have the same rights because he is ethnic. That's different than being like, all right, everybody needs the same thing. And it's like, well, some people are better at things than other people. And like, once you lose that nuance, like that's exactly when you lose other people. So and that's kind of where it's like, I know that like thinking that every single person should have their own like he, she, her, them in their Twitter bio. I know it's absurd and I know it's hilarious. So I want the other people to know that most people think that that's ridiculous. So we're all on the same page. I just also think that they should be able to get married and have health care and get an abortion if they want. Like you can have both things of like, hey guys, how about we calm down a tad bit? But yes, you deserve the same rights as everybody else. Like that shouldn't even be a question.
Right. The last thing I want is just to be in an echo chamber where everyone has the same thoughts and everyone agrees with the same things and thinks the same things are wrong. It's like, no, there's no growth there. There's no, like, you can't learn anything in that environment. You know, I would rather learn from somebody who's totally opposite from me and maybe get a new perspective on the way I'm doing things than be right all the time. I'm wrong most of the time, but I'm willing to learn. Like, I would rather be wrong and learn something than to have every single thing I say be right.
Things have been so polarizing lately, though. The echo chamber does sound pretty good, though.
I want people to care more about other people's well-being than their own. Like
what's in it for them?
Yeah, if I have the opportunity to be successful, I'm going to go for it. But if I know that it's going to like ruin somebody else's career or ruin somebody else's day, I'm not as interested in it. I'm like, now I'm trying to find new ways to go about, reaching that goal or getting to that point without.
But also, I think something that you said.
Else.
I think that's something that you said that's very important that has kind of gotten lost especially now when we're all stuck at home and the only interaction we have is like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, where it's black and white on paper. There isn't nuance, but so many people are afraid of being wrong. Time tells what's right and what's wrong. Like right now, we're all like arguing about like the 150 genders on Facebook when in 30 years, Facebook might not even be here. And we're all like dying on a hill about it. And it's like, nobody's going to care that you took the right side of that stance. Like be wrong every once in a while. And that's kind of the point of like, the moon bit is like, I will say something I know isn't true on purpose just to be like, all right, let's see what this guy's going to tell me about it. Like, that's where you're going to learn about something or you're going to learn about somebody is you're just like, hey man, I don't think gravity is a real thing. And they'll be like, well, it's really just a theory and they've never really been able to prove it. I mean, the math says it's there, but there's not really any proof. And you're like, all right, cool. This guy has like looked into like nonsense. Now we can have a nonsense conversation. And you're like, and you can kind of do that where if you're like, well, the sky's purple and it's purple because I believe it's purple. And you're like, well, now I can't go anywhere with this person. Like,
yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, we're not rooted in the same reality. That's like, I can't have a conversation with a comic who gets 3 laughs in 10 minutes and then comes up to me and is like, I just killed. And it's like, wait, you what? Like, did you not hear? You got 3 laughs in 10 minutes. What are you talking about? Like,
I'm a professional comedian. I got paid $20 to do this set tonight. And it's like, well, I mean, yeah, I guess that technically makes you a professional comedian, but like, is this the only $20 you're going to make this month? How are you paying rent? Like, are you like, what?
Yeah.
That's.
Yeah. If we don't live in the same reality, makes it a lot harder to have a conversation.
I call myself I'll do it around my house. And I'll just be like, I'm a professional comedian. I know what's funny. But like, I'm not going to like go to like I'm not going to go and hang out with David and be like, as professional comedians, it's like, no, I still have to go fucking hawk generators on Monday. Like, that's what I have to do because I'm not, yes, we get paid money to do comedy semi-regularly, and that's better than 99% of people who set foot on stage. So yes, that deserves some recognition. But like, you had a bad set, and even like when you had a good set, it wasn't that great. Like, just live in the reality of it.
I'm so self-critical, you know. I mean, I can have a good set, but if I'm not getting like the big laughs every line that I think deserves one, it's like I need to work on that so I get those. I don't live in a world where I'm like, man, I killed just now when, you know, I made a few people laugh, like in a room of 20 people. That doesn't help me at all. It doesn't help me at all, and it doesn't help the people around me at all. If I live in this world, you also have to be a
little delusional. Like, you have to be a tad bit delusional, because otherwise you wouldn't keep going.
Yeah. Oh, sure. I mean, I go in and I'm like, all right, I did what I intended to do, but now I have something new to work on.
But not so delusional that you're disconnected from reality either.
Right.
The best you can do is get your point across that you're a well-educated idiot who's confident that they know nothing at all. I think that's the best you could do as a comedian, is trying to get that point across that, like, I am confident that I am the dumbest person in the room. And your performance needs to be as good, if not better, than the audience.
And the last thing I hate is when somebody's like, and it kind of goes to like my whole structure, and it's something that I've talked about before on another podcast. Like, I don't want somebody to be like, I know, like, I kind of knew where that joke was going. That's the last thing I want to happen. Like, I want to take something, and it's going to sound like I'm sucking my own dick a little bit, but I want to take something that's like not funny, but make it funny. And like, there's a guy I used to sell cars with, and he's like, ISIS isn't funny at all. What's funny about ISIS? Do you know, I'd spent the rest of my day at work making a list of how ISIS would be funny. Like, that's what I did the rest of my day. And I was like, it would be hilarious if they had sponsorships on like their hijabs. It'd be hilarious, like, if they had their own NASCAR car. It'd be funny if they had their own Chive website where they had the Jihadi Hottie of the week. Like, these are all things that would be hilarious. And he's like, all right, now I kind of get it. And it's like, that's where it's fun. Like, nobody's going to be funnier than a fart or somebody falling down, but also nobody wants to go pay money to see somebody do that. Like, that's what you want to do. And of course, like, dicks are funny, so there's always going to be dumb dick jokes. But you also, for your own sanity, you have to be like, do you know what's real funny? Saying that the moon isn't real. Why is that funny? Because some people believe it. I kind of, like, sometimes it depends on how high I am. Sometimes I'll believe it, and then I'll wake up, and then I'll just be like, oh shit, like, that's stupid. But that's how some people really think. And you're like, that's hilarious in itself. But how do you project that to somebody who's like, the moon's always been real. The landing happened. It moves everything. And you're just like, that's like your job, instead of just being like, oh yeah, the moon, you know?
Yeah. I'm on a crusade to prove that the moon is real, but like, that it's flat.
Yeah, well, it's hollow. Like, and that's the best part about like saying that the moon isn't real, is then you get to like research all the cool shit that like the moon, like, scientifically, when they shot from the moon, it rang like a bell for like a long time. And like, NASA doesn't know why. So like, some people think that the moon is hollow and something's inside of it. So like, just by starting with like a dumb, like, stupid base premise, like, where everybody's like, conspiracy theories are dangerous. It's like, they're dangerous for lazy people. Because if like you actually look into it, every single site by the end, like JFK shooting, all that stuff, like, yeah, the government killed him. But like, when you look at everything, and then somebody's like, is the Pope Hitler? And you're like, God damn it, like, you had me for a little bit. And then you just know it's a crazy person.
What do you mean the moon's not made out of cheese?
Right. And it's like, and it's fun. Like, you get to look into it, and you're like, all right, let's say the moon is made out of cheese. And then, but like, somebody's you have to think of the least common denominator all the time now. Like, no, there's 17 people. Like, I was trying to make a bit about the like when the guys were doing like the tiki torches in Georgia or whatever, because they were like the story was there are more than a dozen people in a Georgia town trying to take over the town. And I was like, do you know how many people is more than a dozen? 13. 13 people is more than a dozen. 13 people showed up, and like you, me, and somebody else could have gone and beat up these nerds, and we're supposed to be afraid of them. Like, it's just sensationalism, and you have to like, it's lazy on our side to be like, oh, all these people are taking over these towns. It's like, it's 13 dudes in a truck. Like, we could handle it. Or it's like, and it's the same on the other side where it's like, oh, they're tearing down statues. It's like, well, we're tearing down racist statues that were made in the 60s to like rub it in. Like, those were put up to go against the civil rights. Like, it's everybody's making lazy arguments because nobody wants to look into it. And then we're just supposed to be like, their argument is dangerous. It's like, well, your argument's dangerous as well because you don't know fucking shit about it. It's like fake news is only dangerous when you don't look into it and you just share it blindly.
The media sensationalizes anyway. That's their job, to get views, to get subscriptions, to get clicks, to get advertisers. So yeah, you've got to appeal to people's emotions. So that's why it's like, these guys took over this town and they're coming for yours too. It's like, well, there's some truth to the fact that maybe they took over the town to an extent, but I mean, when you watch like Fox News, you think that cities like New York and Portland and Seattle are on fire, but it's only like a couple block radius, and it's for the most part subdued. Like, you would think that the world was burning, where, you know, what was it, 93% of Black Lives Matter protests were peaceful. But of course, you got to focus on that 7% and spin this narrative for people who don't exist in that world, and they spread that knowledge to other people. And now there's this just alternative reality going on, and we're all living in the same like world, but in different universes, and that's where the danger is.
I've been doing a bit about billboards in Wisconsin because like I have to drive all over to get like good shows, and there's just like a bunch of billboards, and like one of them is like the sign is just a white cute girl that says your suburbs aren't safe. That's the sign. And it's like a phone number. And like, so to me, like the bit is like, so what are they not safe from? And they're like, well, you know. And it's like, well, no, I don't know. Like, and it's like, but you know what it is. And like, and that's kind of like, that's the whole thing is like, well, just say that you don't like black people, guys. Like, just do it. Like, be upfront about it. Don't be mysterious. Like, we know what you're trying to do, but don't be cute about it.
They want to hear you say it first. They know it's a safe space to say it in. That's what they want.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's, you know.
And well, that's like the turn is like, they'll be like, well, they're not safe, and like people disappear when they're in the area. So I was like, oh, black holes. Yeah, black holes I would not want in my neighborhood. Like the property value would go down instantly. Like,
yeah, nobody knows what's on the other side.
Yeah, and you're just like, so like, and it's like a joke. I haven't figured out exactly how to hit it right, but you're like, you start with the like, oh, black, and people are like, oh shit, he's gonna say that they don't like black people. And so like, no, but black holes, they're like actually literally dangerous. It's a real dangerous thing, and like, so it's gonna take me a while to make that funny. But it's like the idea of them being like, well, we can't say that black people aren't safe, so we're just going to put like this white blonde chick on a sign and be like, hey guys, just so you know, they're not only in the city, black people are allowed in the suburbs now. And it's like, well, just say that then and be like, just be racist. Like, don't be cute and racist. Like, you don't get extra points for being cute.
Right. Well, you're taking the stock footage of some girl.
You don't get points, but you get plausible deniability, and that's what they want. You don't get points.
Yeah.
But you get plausible deniability.
I think you can play in the vagueness of it too. Just like your suburbs aren't safe. Well, from what?
Yeah, but it's the same thing as like sharing your pronouns in your Twitter bio. Like, you don't really give a fuck, but you just it's plausible deniability. So when somebody looks at your Twitter bio, like, you're not like transphobic or like you're not anything because you share what your pronouns are. And when you did the, like in mine, like as my stupid thing is who is Ray Roberts, my pronouns in my Twitter bio are who/who. Like, it's just like, it's like a little subtle jab of like, it doesn't fucking matter what it says in your thing. Like, it just be nice. Like, and
Right.
like if you're gonna be a shithead, be ready for shithead things. And that's like, I'll be a shithead on purpose sometimes, and I'm ready for shithead things. I'll make my own friends pissed at me for like a week, and then I'll show up and be like, for like, you took the bait of all people. Like, I've known you for 7 years, and you know what I'm gonna be like. You know I'm gonna do it, and you still took the bait, and you know that's like me just sitting at home because it doesn't fucking matter. Like, anything online doesn't matter. That's made to be fun, and people take it seriously because we're all our parents now. Like,
Yeah.
and that's the biggest problem. Is like, online isn't dangerous. We're our parents. We're everything we didn't want to be. And I think our last bastion of like not feeling like we are that is to be like, everything's racist. Everything sucks. We didn't do anything to do this. Now we have to fix it. And it's like, well, we're doing the same fucking shit. Like,
Yeah.
we're not doing anything different.
Yeah, it's the same thing over and over again. I think too. You think about, like, for example, if you're going to be an asshole, get ready for asshole things. So the president, for example, for years he's been just attacking like the media, fake news. You're bad at your job. He calls them names, and then when they like come out with a report about him that isn't favorable, he's like, they're picking on me. It's like, dude, you've been. Like, that's what I don't understand. It's like, my parents have that argument all the time. It's, well, if the media is just always picking him apart, and it's like, he's doing that to them. If he were to just be like, if they were to come out with a story about him and he's like, so what, here are my results, I'm going to keep doing my job. It wouldn't be fun for the media to come out with all these constant stream of stories.
He's also the president. Like,
yeah, he drives the narrative.
That's their job, is to pick apart the president. Like, we got too comfortable with like the cool, like, we had the cool black guy for 8 years, and like we got too comfortable of like everybody wants to be part of like this great narrative of everything going good, and then we forgot what like a disaster the world is. Like, as soon as like just somebody who's not like debonair and like good looking and good with words, as soon as that's done, it's the same world. Like, we're in the same world, we just have a shithead who's pushing the narrative now. So like everybody thinks the world's against it. Like, the fucking media went after Obama too, but it was for dumb shit because they didn't have real shit to go after. Like, it's always been the same, but he handled it better. Like,
exactly.
And like, the neo-Nazis are coming. Like, the neo-Nazis were in the 90s. Did we forget about like Oklahoma City? Did we forget about like them going into like the woods? Like, they've always been there. It's just, we see everything now, and there are guys there. Like, we can't, like, just call a spade and be like, all right, the world's always been fucked. This is how we're dealing with it now, instead of being like, where the fuck did this come from? It's like, it's always been there. You just weren't paying attention. Say you weren't paying attention, and we can all move forward as normal adults and get rid of the 30 people that are a problem. Like, I want to know where they are. I want to know who the racist is. I love when people have American flags and Trump things on their truck, because I don't need to be friends with them. Like, I don't need to talk to that person.
Yeah, why is that your identity?
Yeah, like, I work with people who have like Trump 2020 face masks, and I'm like, this is a wild. You're putting somebody else's face, like, name on your own face. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, do you not understand? Like, at any point that you're putting another, I forget who it was, but they're like, if you wear somebody's sport jersey, like if LeBron James sees you wearing a LeBron James jersey in public and you're a grown up, he's allowed to fuck you. Like, that is like, if you, was it? Okay. Yeah. Well, that's a great person to drag that from, but it's a great bit. But like,
it was a great bit.
Like, if Trump sees his name on your face, then he gets to face fuck you. Like, that's the rule. And like, like, you can't, like, I'm not going to wear my works logo on my face. Why would you pay money to wear some other man's name on your face?
Right.
Like, what a weird thing that you trick yourself into. But I
also know not like, if you're 16
person.
and you own my album, I get to fuck you.
If you follow me on Instagram, I will text you about it.
Now I have to throw away all my Nick Nolte face masks. Thanks, Ray Roberts.
Sorry, guys, but like, it's like, it just doesn't make sense that like, it's the people. And I mean, like I said, I worked in politics, so I get like that being your identity for the longest time. Like, I was like, I'm one of the good guys. I'm voting for this. I'm voting. It's like, Yeah, but also they don't get like at the end of the day, they don't give a shit about you. Why are you giving up your entire personality and your entire narrative and everything you say and do is to get Joe Biden or Donald Trump or fucking Joe Jorgensen, who's not a real person? Like you're gonna get them elected?
You can't laugh at that.
I grew up in a conservative household, so I've seen, because like I ask questions. That's like I've always been somebody who asks questions. I got in trouble for asking too many questions. I like to know why certain people behave in certain ways. And so I'm watching Fox News just go from a right-leaning like news source to propaganda, and it's baffling. And the just the alternative reality that people live in is interesting, because like I understand people are looking for someone else to blame, but that's so easy. It's so much easier to blame than it is to do research. And and that's, I mean, this goes back to the education system, but we're conditioned to not ask questions, and that's unfair. If we ask more questions, we would learn more things. That's the best way to get answers to things. Like rather than claim I have the answers, I want to ask more questions.
100%. And that's something like I've personally been like, I'm currently in the middle of like going through a whole, just cause like everybody else in 2020, like everybody's gone through like their huge depression swings. Everybody's gone through like a bunch of changes, like the world's falling apart around you. And it's like, for 10 months, it's so easy to be like, woe is me, like the world's ending. Who gives a shit? And it's like one of those things where like, I was like, all right, if the world's going to end, like I want to be on like the right side of myself for this. And it's kind of like, so I've been personally like, and I've always been like in a huge like crisis of faith thing. Like you, like I always ask questions. I almost got kicked out of confirmation classes from being like, so wait, you're trying to tell me that Gandhi's in hell right now? And like, it's so like you're doing like this whole thing. So you're asking like the questions. And so like, I've been doing a bunch of like research, trying to like work on my brain and all that stuff. And it's like one of those, like the more you learn about education system too, is they just teach you to be smart enough to run factories and like do your job and do everything. They don't want you doing the critical thinking. So now when companies are legitimately coming straight, like we have the technology now to go straight at what makes you do things in a triggered way, quote unquote, like, but even a subconscious way. Like as soon as we know exactly how to get it down to what David Horning wants to do at 12:30 on a Saturday night. Like we know as soon as he's done with his show, he's going to want to have a drink, but we want him to have our drink. So I'm going to hit him with a push message at 12:29 saying, hey, you should try this for 10% off. That's when it's dangerous, is when you can like, that's what it's kind of being weaponized, is the whole problem, not just fake news, but it's the whole direction of we know what's going to hit like white suburban people to get them to share it. The suburbs aren't safe. Guess who lives in like most people live in the suburbs. So that's what's going to go viral, is everything isn't safe. Everything's a panic. When you look out the window, it's going to be fine. Everything's perfectly fine. The secret police were in fucking Milwaukee a couple months ago and nobody gave a shit, because guess what? They don't live in Milwaukee. They live in the suburbs, but the suburbs aren't safe. And like the secret police are taking over cities. Like they know how to like set the narrative and do it so weaponized now, but it's also on us to be like, all right, I'm also a grown ass man. I went to college. I know how to read books. I know what they're doing. Like, so it's on you to be like, yeah, what the fuck? And like, talk to your 50, 60-year-old family. Like, it's so easy to be like, everything's the problem. Everybody's so racist. But then you're still going to fucking Thanksgiving and you're not going to say shit because your parents are helping you pay rent because the world's on fire. Like, you're going to talk all this shit online and get like your browning points and then like shit on somebody trying to make fun of that. And then you're going to go sit with your rich dad. Like, somebody online was like, I have to hide my OnlyFans account from my parents. It's like, that's because they're paying your bills. Like that, you don't want them to know that. Like you have to like be cool and like do it as a secret when you're 28 now. Like you can't have it both ways. Like the world isn't terrible but the terrible people are paying for everything. Like you can't shit on them and then take what the blood money you say is made in a terrible way. You can't have that pay your bills and be like, I'm one of the good people. Like it doesn't work that way.
And I mean, you look at the narrative. I mean, you turn on the news, it's all sensationalized. It's all manipulative. It's all, if you watch this news story, you're going to be angry afterwards. So you're going to find another news story that reaffirms your anger. And then you may comment on it or share it on social media, because we're emotional creatures. Like, we're driven by our emotions. We like to think we're rational, but in the moment we're incredibly irrational. And then we rationalize it in the past tense. So, I mean, just like the OnlyFans thing, it's like, I'm mad at my parents and I have every right to be, but it's like, yeah, but look at what you're doing.
You're also naked online for like $1 a month. That's a very do whatever you want with your body. But like the only reason why you're making money is because it's weird for people to be naked that available all the time. Like at least point at it and be like, I'm making money off of this because it's a very strange thing. Like you can't be like, hey, everything's cool, but I'm also charging money for it. It's like it's the same thing of like, the suburbs aren't safe, but like we're gonna defund all, like we're gonna take away all the money for like community services through like state taxes. Like you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth like that and still like have anybody believe in it. And it's like, it's very fun, it's very cool, it's very chic to be like, everything's terrible, but like as soon as somebody goes, hey, let's like calm down and look at the problem and try to attack it in a real way, instead of going like, no, everything's terrible, you're right, like let's go march aimlessly in the streets. Like it's like, fine, let's do something about it. And then this, like when you look at the do something about it person, like, see, you're the problem because you're not standing next to me. It's like, no, I'm sitting in a room trying to figure out what to do about the problem while you guys are out like marching. And there's nothing wrong with marching, but like you're just mad and you're doing nothing by doing something, instead of like sitting still and actually trying to do something about it. And
right.
Every once in a while, that's why they tell you, if you're mad, wait 2 hours to say something about it. And if you're still mad in 2 hours, that's when you say something. Because then you like get done with like that instant, like, let's go break some shit. It's like, yeah, let's go break some shit, but what do we do after that?
There are people out there with a message, but the message isn't sexy. You know, like if you want to really sit down and break down the brass tacks of how we're actually going to reform policing and how we're actually going to reform redlining and systemic racism, like that's not sexy. That would be the most helpful news story for the most people. But what's going to drive clicks? There's another car on fire. There's another, a cop hit somebody with a club that wasn't doing anything. And now everybody's commenting on that and sharing that, and the message gets lost. We share things when we're driven by emotion for the most part. Every once in a while, I'll share an article that's like, wow, that's really interesting and like helpful, and a lot of people could use this. But guess what? That's getting 0 likes. It's getting 0 shares. But if I share a tweet that was offensive by somebody, I'm going to get retweets and shares and likes and comments, and that is where media is manipulating us. So is it fair to say
rumors are
fake
more
news?
Fun.
Rumors
are fun. Like bad news it's always more fun to talk shit about, like, especially even when you're hanging out with your friends. Like the first time I'll see you, you'll be like, hey David, it's great to see you. It's been so, like, kind of how we did, like, it's great to see you. And then you kind of like start picking on each other because it's more fun. Like it's just what you do. Like you want to go negative. It's more fun. It's more entertaining. But like you can't also be like, you can't go to the movies and watch a war movie and be like, hey, this is super cool, I wish life was like this is super entertaining, when life is exactly like that. Like, you can't be like, and you have to like draw the line. You're like, all right, this is movie shit. Like, yeah, I want to stop cops from beating people, but then, I mean, it's not like the Jesus turned the other cheek, because if you're going to keep getting shot, like at this point, set everything on fire. But like when the first cop beat somebody, like everybody should have just stopped. And instead of being like, it's us versus them, it's like, hey guys, like this is not okay. And now it's like the thin blue line, blue lives matter. It's like, no, that's a job. That's an occupation you chose to be in. Wouldn't you want, like, if generator salespeople were going around and fucking killing people, I'd be like, yeah, what? Like, this has nothing to do with keeping electricity on at somebody's house. Like, killing the problem is not stopping other violence.
You crossed the line.
People were going to get shot at the Joker movie. We don't need to fucking...
The news story about that, it wasn't fake. Like, it wasn't fake news, but why would you put that into the universe? Like, why?
They just made shit up. They were like, what happens if somebody goes and shoots this up? Like, nobody did. They were begging for it. Like, the movie was good. It was a good movie, and they're like, this plays towards incels. It's like, incels weren't even a thing till last week. They've been filming this for a year. Like, what are you talking about?
It's a classic coming of age story.
Oh, it's a dark movie that's triggering to people. It's like, yeah, that's what you go to a movie for, is to see something that doesn't happen in your real life and makes you feel emotions. Like, yeah, I sit at home and watch The Office all the time because I want to be, like, I just want to chill. That's my chill show. Yeah. It's relaxing. There's a laugh every once in a while. But when I'm paying $20 to go to a movie, I better feel something before I leave there. Like, yeah, the world sucks and it's hard, but, like, you're not going to bubble wrap everything. Like, it's not like the safe space argument, but, like, when you're choosing the entertainment that has no entertainment on purpose and no creativity, like, you want to know what the next beat is all the time. Like, what are you doing?
I mean, I feel like everything that we've covered, like, has layers of humor to it. Just our constant addiction to that emotional response, to that, like, I want people to think highly of me because of what I post on social media based off of this news story that I read. Like, I mean, you were talking about the whole Hunter Biden thing, and then Facebook and Twitter banned like Rudy Giuliani, or I don't know if it was like Trump's tweet about it or what. But, you know, I mean, social media is starting to put their foot down because now more and more is coming out that this might be Russian misinformation campaign through Rudy Giuliani, and like you put the pieces together and it's like, yeah, why would this laptop be at this random repair shop in New Jersey? Like,
but all of that is inherently funny. That is a real life story, but it's also something that's been going on for the history of mankind. Like, weapons of mass destruction was all fake, and we went to that. But Robert Mueller, the same guy who was supposed to find those, couldn't find that Trump did something wrong. Like, that's hilarious that's connected.
Man, but Robert Mueller's at home, like, he's like, where did I put my keys? All the time.
Yes, if you look at it at the base level, it's upsetting. Like, it's all upsetting that, like, the world is in such disarray. But as long as you can take a step back and you're like, all right, cool. So, like, Joe Biden has a crackhead son that leaves his laptop at a computer store. That's a great movie idea.
This summer.
That's the inciting incident for sure.
Yeah, like, that's hilarious. But if somebody was like, it's not funny at all, this might cost the election for Joe Biden, we need to stop this from being on there. It's like, no, this is actually a really funny thing, and that's kind of where it's our job to be like, no, this is why it's funny, and pointing out the funny parts of it, but also still, like, you don't want to be just a joke-telling motherfucker. But that's what our fucking job is to be a joke-telling motherfucker. Like, it'd be great to go out there all the time and be Hannah Gatsby and be, like, funny once every four jokes, but, like, you'll make your point. But also, like, nobody's gonna go see you all the time if they're not having a good time. Like, you're a comedian. Like, you're supposed to shit on the king, and he's the one person who won't get killed because he's shitting on the king. But also, like, you have to be funny about it. So even if you have to pull it back a little bit, like, be funny about it, and you can get away with anything.
Yeah, I was reading an interview with Colin Quinn, and he was talking about how a couple came up to him after a show, and they were like, you really made us think. Like, you didn't make us laugh, but we really got something out of this. And he's like, well, then I'm doing it wrong, because my goal is to be funny. Like, I'm glad I made you think, and I appreciate that, but I have to find ways to punch up the humor here. Like, you know, and I mean, Colin Quinn's great at that stuff. Like Red State, Blue State is a phenomenal commentary.
You can't laugh at that.
I think we have a problem with going beyond our first emotion when we see a news story. I think that's a big problem. It's like you see the news story, you get that emotional kick, and then you immediately act on it. And you had a good point of like waiting 2 hours if you're angry, and then coming back to the situation. And I think as a comic, it's important to feel that emotion and then ask why. Like, why am I feeling this way? Like, what are all the reasons why? Based off of like what I know and where I've come from and what I believe in and what I'm reading. And then I look more into it, and then I realize, oh, I just wasted all that time like trying to write something about this based off of this emotion, when I realized that I don't actually care that much about it. But the way that they frame things as journalists now it's frustrating, because it's easy to read a headline and be like, oh my God, I can't believe that. And then you read the article and it's just a very like cut and dry, boring story. I mean, so many of us will read a headline and be like, share this. You didn't read the story.
Well, it's also like just to bring it back to joke writing too and performing is like, it's kind of on us as well to like move with the times and not be like Greg Giraldo got away with. Like, he would say the premise, let everybody be like, and then be able to explain it. And then you're like, oh, like at first it seemed real shitty, but then it ended up being good. And like being like, they should trust me. I'm here. Like, not everybody, like that's not the world now. Like, you almost have to like ease them into the idea of like, hey guys, and not to bring up Bill Squire every 45 seconds on this podcast, but he does that like in his set. He'll be like, all right, now I'm going to do something a little dark, where like it's not even a dark joke. But if he were to just like be Bill Squire, like doing his headlining, like, like his whole set is like very upbeat and positive and like, I'm the goofy guy. And then all of a sudden be like, 9/11 joke. You're like, yeah, what the fuck just happened? Like it's not that, but that's how he's like, hey, it's gonna get a little bit darker. If you don't like it, give me 2 seconds to do that. And some people are like, and this is a compliment because he does a very good job of like setting the expectation. Like, I promise it's going to get somewhere good, where a lot of people are like, hey, just say, like, they feel like people should trust them into doing that, where it's like, if you're going to go from being like the poppy, happy, like happy-go-lucky guy and all of a sudden be like 9/11 was an inside job, then you're like, well, you're gonna lose somebody and that's on you. Like, that's that. You have to be like, look, now we're gonna get a little weird. Like, you trust me, you know that I'm funny. And even taking that second of being like, hey, I know that we like all that stuff, can we do some of this other stuff that I think is really funny, and you obviously think that I'm funny, so please trust that since you think I'm funny and I think this is funny, it might be outside of your normal bounds. Let's go down this path. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But at least you kind of told them, and like now you kind of get the consent of the audience to do that. And it's kind of important to do that because, like I said, it's supposed to be triggering and supposed to get that laugh out of nowhere. But the last thing you want to do is be like, hey, I'm going to shit on like one of the biggest tragedies in the world when most people have a problem with it. It's not a room full of knuckleheads that are just going to instantly think it's funny. Like, on your podcast, you can talk about whatever you want because people are going to you for that content. There might be some guy's girlfriend there who's like, I don't want to hear about 9/11 for the next 10 minutes. All right, cool. Go to the bathroom, get a drink. Like, at least you know now. Like, and it's one of those things.
Too soon.
Pitting two groups of people against each other. You're just talking about a miscommunication of ideas in a very polarizing way. And that's how journalists are trained to write articles. That's how they're trained to, present stories, is like, you got to bring people in. What brings people in more than anything? Us versus them. Giving you a side as a potential like reader or viewer, and then, making you choose your side based off of the rest of the story. It's like, doesn't get us anywhere. It just needs to be, here are the objective facts, make your own decision.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, that's where it gets confused, is now everybody's part of the news. Like, everybody's got Twitter, and I'm happy that more people have voices, but I also think that not everybody should have a voice. And like, it shouldn't be like, and it's not based off of like creed, race, religion, anything like that, but it's like, I shouldn't have should I have an opinion on who should be president? Sure. Should I have my one man, one vote? Great. But I shouldn't have like a famous person who has 100 million followers on something. Their voice shouldn't be used for voting. Like, I don't want to see Kylie Jenner telling me to vote. I want her to sell makeup and like be a rapper's wife. Like, that's what I want her. Like, that's what you're good at. Yes, you have your one vote, but like, you shouldn't also be telling people to vote. The same reason why you're famous is why you shouldn't be telling people to vote. Is people are irrational. They like what you look like. They like your makeup, but they like you because you're dumb and they're dumb too. So I don't want a dumb person telling me to vote. Yeah. I want Walter Cronkite on TV being like, "Hey guys, voting's coming up. These are the stories. We looked into them." Like, nobody watches 60 Minutes when 60 Minutes is the best news like outlet in the entire world, because they'll do a story like 3 weeks after it happens and they'll get the whole story. But like, that's not when it's going to sell, because some schmuck up the road was there too. And he's like, I saw this car on fire. It must be Antifa. And it's like, well, it wasn't really Antifa. The car caught on fire because of like a recall. Like, GM actually did this. This person was just wearing all black when it happened. So now you have to like do a story in a day to like do that. And then all the facts aren't out. And it's like, everybody wants it then. And it's just like, you got to like wait a minute to actually see what happened. Because when they do the retraction, nobody sees that.
Right.
Like, when the real story comes out, nobody sees it, because the same guy who got famous for breaking that news isn't the one who does it, because he's afraid of being wrong. He's not going to be like, "Hey guys, my bad. Didn't do that. Like, the car just blew up and that guy was there trying to save the baby from the back seat. Like, he wasn't putting a bomb in the car." Like,
yeah, I misrepresented
this.
At the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's harder to say that. I would love to see like high school newspapers write the way that professional like journalists write. That would be just like very like set the science department against like the history department. Like,
well, that's one of the books that I'm like, the book that I'm reading is about it's about like psychedelics in the church and stuff like that. But like and that's kind of one of the things is like how the guy is talking about how like the classics department won't work with the science department and won't work with the history department, just because all of them think they all have the best way to look at history. And it's like, well, in all honesty, like, all three of you should be looking at this one thing on like, get the full picture of it, instead of like just your, like, when you look at a painting, I'm going to see it different than you are. And like the painting of the guy who actually painted it, you have to like get everybody to be like, this is actually what's going on, instead of just your opinion on it. Like, you have to get everybody's opinion if you're going to do it that way. And that's kind of the point of this. And so you saying that, it's just like, yeah, you're going to get like the high school journalist being like the science department said this while the math department said this. And it's like, well, you guys are the same thing, but you just have a different thing because you want to be important.
Right.
Also, too, do you guys think that it's on us as an audience or as a listener or a person who consumes media or news to have more of an attention span than just to read the headline? Because I think that so many of us get caught up in just reading the top part and then not reading the article at all. And there's nothing in that that news clip or the heading of the news clip that leaves us to believe that there's any more to read in that article other than the headline.
Well, they almost train you too to like, it's that same thing of like what David said before, is like, it's a salacious headline and then you click it and you're like, well, the story's basically the headline, but it's like a lot more benign. So like, now they'll like write a story so it reflects the headline instead of like the opposite. And yes, I would say on us as like performers and people who want to create media, we are part of the media. We should be doing that. So like, and that almost makes me more mad is when I see like other comedians will like share it and be like, this is what's wrong with the world. It's like, it's not for you to say what's right or wrong on the world. You're a clown. Like, you make fun of all of it. Like, you should be, aside from it, you shouldn't have a team and you should be doing that. But also, you obviously didn't read it and you're mad at somebody for using their platform the wrong way, but you're doing the same thing by shitting on something before even looking into it. Like, so it's like, I hold people who say they're part of the media or entertainers or have like a platform, like they're held to a higher standard than just like my grandma who like wasn't around when fucking cars were around. Like that's complete, like that's a whole different planet than where we're at now. Of course she's going to get sucked into something stupid, but also like she's 80, so get your life together. You should know what's real and what's not real by now.
It's you should. But again, you know, if you've lived your entire life in a system that punishes you for asking questions because it's distracting from meeting quotas, which is, you know, everything's output driven. It's like, how much did you create? Did you reach your level? That's all that matters. Like if you ask questions, you're distracting from that. And, you know, that's challenging to a lot of people. So, you know, when I have conversations with my parents, I'll say things and my mom will just look at me with this just glazed over look in her eyes. Like I have questions about the whole system. Like that's, and I'll repeat that. That's probably the 10th time I've said that this episode. But that's what I believe. I believe we should always be holding it to a higher standard, not because I hate it, because right now it's the best we have, but it can be better. It can always be better. And, you know, not asking questions stops you from reaching that potential.
We're supposed to be the city on a hill. Like, if you want to go back to all these people, like, you hate America by saying you want it to be better, like, don't be here. We grow up learning that, like, people thought that the streets were lined with gold in America, and that we're supposed to be the city on a hill. We're supposed to be the example for excellence. And then, like, as soon as you can't just say we're excellent and make it be that way. It's the same thing with fake news. Like you can't make up your own truth. And then when you look into it, it's not the same thing. Like you have to look at it the same way in the same narrative. Every single thing is like, cool. You want a good like marketing push behind it. You want everything to look shiny, but like underneath it, it's a pile of shit. It might be a shiny pile of shit, but that's all it is. And it's on the people who make the system. It's on the people who are part of the system. Because there's more of us that like perpetuate the system than there are the people who make the system to be like, look, we know like the narrative, how about we live up to it? But it's a lot of work and nobody wants to do the work. And,
right.
I mean, I'm lazy too. So like I'm part of the problem, but like I also don't say that I can solve the problem or that anybody's inherently bad. Like to go through like my religion problem, like I went through like a big Buddhist phase and it's like, ground floor is life is suffering. That's ground floor for Buddhism. Is once you realize that life fucking blows, then everything else is like great. Like you're like, oh, I get to go make money and like buy super cool shoes by selling generators. Like I hate doing that 40 hours a week, but boy, do I like nice shoes. Like it's like you have to do the shitty thing to get the nice thing. And it's like, all right, the suburbs aren't safe, but like at least I'm safe. Like, and it's one of the, like you just kind of have to like, that's on you to put that spin on it. And everything's not a Marvel movie where it's like wrapped up at the end where you're like, you have that glimmer of hope, but you know fucking Thanos is coming. Like you have to just be like, all right, like the next shitty thing is going to happen. Let me enjoy the happy stuff now until that shitty thing happens again.
Yeah, we got to beat this level to be ready for the next one. Like if we're still arguing over stupid semantics and who's right and who's wrong, well, this thing is festering. Like, we're not getting anywhere.
It's a lot of two-parent problems. Like people with two parents are the only ones who have those problems. Like I don't talk to either one of mine, and I can tell right from wrong because like my parents hated each other for fucking 20 years and then finally got a divorce. And you're like, oh shit, life's terrible. It doesn't matter if it looks nice. And now you start with that whole thing. You're like, all right, cool. Everything sucks. Nobody's being honest with you. And so when you find that genuine conversation, you find that genuine truth, you're like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be. And everybody thinks that that's what it's supposed to be all the time, instead of like America's the city on a hill for like free speech stuff. We can get away with saying things. We have a great economy for some people. Well, like once you look deeper into it, like you have to like take those nuggets and like, all right, cool. Let's try to make everything up to this level, but they're not to that level. And you have to like live in those small battles and small goals, like anything else, like literally anything else in life. You have to be like, yeah, I have to waste 40 years of my life to get retired, but after that 40 years, I get to do fucking nothing. But then I'm going to die like right afterwards, and that's going to suck. But for like that year or two, it's going to be great. And like it's the same thing, and you just have to be like on that bound. Yeah, like I'm gonna drive 2 hours to do 4 minutes on a showcase I'm not getting paid for, but for those 4 minutes, my God, I'm gonna feel like I'm on top of the world. Like everything else sucks about it, but like for those 4 minutes, you're like, I'm gonna hold on to that for the next week until it happens again. And that's what, like, I think that's what you have to do with all these news stories too, is like they're just straight up stealing babies. But like, I'm going to like make sure, like, I'm going to try real hard to make sure my baby's not stolen because of that. I'm glad they told me about that. Like, they're like, let's talk about all the babies that aren't stolen.
Yeah, that's not as fun of a news story. Like,
a whole bunch
Kayla.
Of babies weren't stolen.
Yeah. Kayla from Omaha, 4 years old, was playing on her bike outside of her house when an old Ford Escort pulled up. And then she kept playing, and it was fine. Back to you.
He just wanted to say hello.
Yeah.
Today in Buddhism,
it was the neighbor.
Yeah. He parked to go to the neighbor's house. That's it. Back to you.
Today in Buddhism news, it can only get better from here.
Yeah.
The kids that weren't kidnapped. That's going to be my podcast. It's just a podcast talking about kids that didn't disappear.
Yeah, a dozen people with tiki torches took over this town, but let's talk about the thousands of people who were safe inside their house. That's the different story.
Laughing.
How would you give advice to somebody who says, I want to write a joke about fake news or something that I saw on the news, the sensationalism or whatever? How would you go about that?
First, know that people are going to hate it for a while. It's not going to go well the first time. But also think of it as if you heard somebody say that. Like, think of it as if it was something that you really cared about and you didn't think was funny at all. What would make you understand the funny part of it, behind it? And kind of write it from that direction. And that's kind of why, to like open up the idea in that joke, I pick like the moon isn't real because one, it's ridiculous because you can see it. I even say it in the joke. You can see it, like it's there. Whatever it is, it's there. The moon is real. What we call as the moon is real. And it's a ridiculous thing to say out loud. So instantly, I can't take that person seriously. I know they're joking around because they say the moon's not real. Like, maybe don't just start with like Antifa should run the government. Like, yeah, that'd be real funny if that was a thing, but don't make that the premise and then try to backfill it. Like, weasel your way into it. And like the part that like we talked about is like that, like the whole point of that joke was to lean into like, we want to say we're all super liberal, but we're gentrifying a neighborhood that used to be like not the quote unquote best neighborhood by being in a mac and cheese shop. Like, we all say that capitalism's the problem, but it's actually pretty good. Like, it's actually a pretty good system. Is it perfect? No, but it's what we got right now, and it's the best it's ever been. But it's not perfect. So like, be able to play both sides of the fence. Like, you're not going to change somebody by being definitive, and it's definitely not going to be fun unless it's like purposely ridiculously definitive. Then that's funny sometimes too. So like, long story short is just be funny and it'll happen. I don't know. Be talented. Let's start with that. Be talented, and then you can do things. Make sure God chose you to be very funny, and then you can write jokes as well as I can.
Make sure God chose. That's the best response.
Like at a certain point, you don't know. Like, it's like, I go through the thought process of like, somebody's going to hate this at some point. So what am I going to put in there that is like, obviously I'm undercutting myself. So I know it's ridiculous. So you can point to it and be like, yes, I know it's ridiculous. So you should know it's ridiculous. That's why it's also funny. Don't just show up on day one being like, I'm going to take down capitalism in a funny way. Like,
Coming for you, capitalism.
Yeah, tell a dick joke for like 4 years and then maybe try economics. Like,
Yeah,
that's maybe like,
it's a natural progression.
yeah, like
if I have 2 balls. All right, Jeremy, any closing ideas, thoughts, non sequiturs or sequiturs?
What is a sequitur?
I don't know.
All right.
That's a whole new episode.
It's not a non sequitur.
It's the opposite of a non sequitur.
I'm just sitting here trying to figure out how I could be as blessed or as talented as Ray Roberts.
Yeah, I think we all aspire.
I don't see why some people think I'm arrogant. That's the point of this. Is I don't.
Anything you want to plug? Where can we find you on social media? All that. Your podcast.
I just revamped my website. Yeah, whoisrayroberts.com for everything Ray Roberts. I just made an LLC, so I'll be getting the information for that. So maybe I can be a real business person. Browns Out of Town podcast. That's at Browns Out of Town. It's talking about Cleveland Browns football. There is a little bit of like life shit in there too, so that's fun. We like base on stuff, but it's like based around the Browns. That's cool. But at Who is Ray Roberts on everything. And I'm going to be working on a project. I'm calling it the Manhattan Project because it's going to be secretive, but it's kind of not really secret, but I think it's clever. And it's for legal reasons. I'm not going to completely go into it, but look for the Manhattan Project when that starts going. Since this will be in a month, I might be actually starting to work on that. So I'm speaking it into truth. So we'll work on that, but that'll be on whoisrayroberts.com as well.
Okay. Sounds like you're a busy boy. Keep doing that.
Gotta stay busy.
Yeah, man. Good luck up there.
Hey, thanks. Good luck down there.
Hey, thanks. He's been Ray Roberts. The other voice you've heard throughout has been Jeremy Demery. He's our token ethnic. And
you're welcome.
Yeah,
so just before we get out of here, to make this go longer, just because you reminded me of it, I went up on a show and I was like, I just moved from Ohio, so I know I look like one of you, but I'm not one of you.
Hey guys, when you're watching the news, it can feel stressful. It can feel negative. You can feel all kinds of emotions, but remember that no matter what, you can find a way to laugh at that.
You can't laugh at that.
Special thanks to Golden Ox Studio. You can find Golden Ox Studio for all your podcasting needs at goldenoxstudio.com. Hit up Jeremy. He is fantastic to work with, a professional. He makes podcasting easy. And if you've been kicking the tires on starting your own podcast, definitely give Golden Ox Studio a look.
If you'd like to weigh in on today's topic, follow us on Twitter at YouCan'tLaughPod, or like us on Facebook at You Can't Laugh at That, and tell us how you did laugh at today's topic, or how you didn't. This is all about the conversation, is what I'm saying. All right, bye.